Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is September 8th. This day in 2004 should have been a day of celebration for Jay Orbin. It was, after all, his 45th birthday, and he had just returned home to Phoenix from a jewelry sales trip to Florida. But instead of birthday cake and phone calls from his loved ones, Jay's life would end in a gruesome fashion. Weeks later, his dismembered torso was found stuffed into a plastic container and abandoned in the desert. What followed was a case full of deception and the ultimate betrayal. Today, we're talking about the murder of Jay Orbin. Let's get started. On September 8, 2004, Jay Orbin was finishing up a business trip. He made his way back to Phoenix, Arizona, and drove home. Phone records and credit card receipts confirm his movements that day. But that was it. After that, there was nothing. His mother, Joanne, remembered calling him to wish him a happy birthday. Later, she recalled, quote, "He said he'd talk to us later. We never heard from him again," end quote. When Jay's family grew concerned, his wife, Marjorie, brushed it off. She told them Jay was probably just on another business trip. But her calmness felt off. Days passed with no word and no sign of Jay. Eventually, he was reported missing and Detective Jan Butcher was assigned to the case. And Butcher kept pushing Marjorie for details. But she avoided giving them, stalling when asked for something as simple as Jay's license plate number or his travel plans. Meanwhile, Jay's brother Jake flew in from San Diego. He had always thought that Jay and Marjorie were the picture-perfect couple. But now, watching her behavior up close during this incredibly stressful time, he was beginning to think differently. As it turns out, Jay and Marjorie's marriage had already been strained. They'd struggled with fertility for years. Jay traveled constantly for work, and when he was gone, Marjorie filled the silence with shopping sprees and expensive purchases. In fact, on Jay's birthday, she bought herself a grand piano. The missing persons case quickly began to look less like a disappearance and more like a murder. 6 weeks later, on October 23, 2004, the investigation took a horrifying turn. A homeless man walking through the outskirts of Phoenix stumbled across an ordinary Rubbermaid container wrapped in heavy plastic. Curious, he opened it. Inside was a man's torso. The arms, legs, and head were all missing, and the internal organs had been removed. Detective Dave Barnes, one of the first on the scene, later described the moment. Quote, "He decides to open the container. He sees the torso of a body. All of the internal organs, intestines were missing. I thought, who could do this to a human being? Cut off his arms, his legs, his head?" End quote. DNA confirmed that the torso belonged to Jay Orbin. The container had been dumped just miles from the Orbin home. Investigators believe that the killer wanted the body to be found, if only so Jay could be declared legally dead and life insurance could pay out. It was no longer a question of where is Jay Orbin, it was who killed him and why. All eyes turned to Marjorie. Just 2 days after Jay disappeared, surveillance footage showed her at a Lowe's hardware store buying cleaning supplies, black garbage bags, and 2 large blue storage containers, which she paid for with Jay's credit card. The container that held the torso looked identical to the ones she bought. Back at the Orbin home, the garage floor had been scrubbed with acid and covered in epoxy, erasing any possible traces of blood. Prosecutors later argued that Marjorie shot Jay in that garage while their son was upstairs asleep. She then used jigsaw blades to dismember his body, cuts that forensic experts said matched the blades found in the house. As for her motive, Investigators painted a picture of a woman who wanted Jay's money, his insurance, and the freedom to live out her affairs. She had been seeing a bodybuilder named Larry Weisberg, who even had a garage remote for the Orbin home. Police raided his place, but could never tie him directly to Jay's murder. Then came the jailhouse testimony. A former cellmate of Marjorie claimed that she confessed to her, saying, quote, "He was shot, frozen, de-thawed, and his arms, legs, and head were cut off," end quote. Still, Marjorie refused to admit guilt. She rejected every plea deal, telling the court, quote, "I will never let my son hear me say that I did this to his father. I'll let them kill me first," end quote. But the jury didn't buy her denials. After an 8-month trial filled with forensic testimony, infidelity revelations, and graphic evidence, they deliberated for just 7 hours. Marjorie Orbin was found guilty of first-degree murder, fraud, and theft. On October 1st, 2009, Marjorie was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The former showgirl and aspiring socialite would spend the rest of her life behind bars. For Jay's family, the pain, of course, never faded. His young son Noah was left without a father and without the mother he thought he knew. Custody went to Jay's brother Jake, who tried to give Noah as normal of a childhood as possible. But friends recalled how quiet and withdrawn the boy became. Every birthday and every milestone was a reminder of the father who should have been there. The case itself became a true crime sensation. It was featured on 48 Hours, Diary of a Showgirl, as well as in books like Dancing with Death and What She Always Wanted. Audiences were fascinated and horrified by the idea of a glamorous woman leading a double life of shopping, affairs, and eventually murder. But for Jay's family, it wasn't a story. It was a loss that could never be undone. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Jay's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!